My cat just did the same thing.
I know we got a new kitten and he's kind of crazy.
What's his name?
Fluffy with an S.
When did you get him?
Back in November, he's been kind of like Ella's. He's kind of crazy.
Kittens are.
I don't know how to describe it. He's just nuts.
Okay, yeah.
Out the four, I have your backup deal at clinic.
Mayor?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. Oh,
We are live.
okay, good. Better than dead.
Copy that. Tower 12 Wildcat, and he is out, no injuries.
Is that Elise or Roger?
That's Elise.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I think you both have them, so.
No, I'm trying out a new spot in my house. It's a little weird.
And a cold as well?
Yep, and a cold. And a baby upstairs because there's no daycare today.
Oh,
A lot of not things happening today.
Yep.
yeah, boy, yeah. And Jen, I know you called, but I just got off the phone. With it doesn't look to me like it's building season, but at least people are planning ahead.
Well, that's new.
Well, yeah, well, maybe I shouldn't say that because this is something that was supposed to have started last summer. They're planning ahead for this summer.
All right.
Is Interlodge active right now?
No, but the road is still closed.
Yeah.
Interlodge is straight line technically, but
Which doesn't work for everybody.
No, in
country
fact,
country club.
the way I interpret that is I am not allowed to go out and plow in front of my garage because I'm not going on a straight line from a lodge to the Wildcat base. Is that, Elise, is that your understanding?
I think you can go out. I just think you're not supposed to go driving around in your car.
Well,
Or like
not-
ski
no chance
touring.
of that.
Yeah, you're not supposed to go ski touring, but
Yeah, we don't want you going and running your errands and trying to go to the post office and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, what post office is that?
Also, before we start, I did just get a message from Cody from Friends of Alta saying he's not going to be able to join us today.
Well, he contacted me earlier and said, gee, I don't think I can make it up there in my Prius. And I wrote him back and said, look, this thing is virtual. Here's the sign in. So anyway, he's off. Not a good sign.
He had something else come up, so I guess we're not expecting him to join us today.
Okay, got it. Let's see, we have one more minute to go and we have 1, 2, 3. Oh, let's see. So
I'm only blurring because I'm woofing a bowl of cantaloupe and I don't feel like you've folks should be forced to watch that.
Much appreciated.
Envelope.
But I'm here.
Yeah.
You could probably make money with that on YouTube.
I'm sure people would watch it.
Oh, yes, right. Let's see, we have Carolyn to come, and there she is. Okay.
Oh,
Little
Howard.
On the nose. Recording is in progress. I hereby call to order the Alta Town Council meeting of Wednesday, January 11th. And this will be an electronic meeting without an anchor location pursuant to my determination of January 3rd. And if there's ever a case where we can justify a non-anchor location, today is it. Okay. With that, a lot has been happening in the air and on the ground recently. And some of the agenda will reflect that. So let's turn to, it's a little bit early, citizen input. Have you been contacted, Molly, by anyone considering citizen input?
I have. I know Margaret Burke, it looks like, has joined us and she requested to speak, so allow her to do so now. And I think Jen received a written comment as well. I don't know if you want to do that first or after.
Yeah, maybe while she's coming over. So Margaret Burke, it was forwarded to the council today, but she submitted a comment expressing her thanks to the dedication, professionalism, and energy of the public safety personnel. And maybe, I guess, I don't know if what she wanted to speak in person was, I don't want to take her spotlight if she wanted to read the same comment.
Thank you. No, I did want to thank the people who work so tirelessly to keep our community safe, but I also wanted to encourage the town to think of parking needs not only as individual actions proposed one at a time, like the Albion lot, the ramp, the Upper Albion parking, and the Supreme Bend, but to look at parking in a larger framework. What is the desired result in 5 years, 10 years, etc.? UDOT will be proposing a transportation proposal for Little Cottonwood. CWC is working on a visitor study to inform decision makers, including the U.S. Forest Service, what visitors want and what the area can manage while sustaining the health of the watershed, the natural environment, and ensuring water quality. I do not see any discussion of these topics in the proposal before the town council, but I believe that analysis is important. And infrastructure not only includes parking, but it includes bathrooms. And should they be co-located? The lift company's rough proposal is to add 90 spaces and eliminate roadside parking on U210. What about on the bypass road? Parking on the bypass is referenced in the background section of the proposal, but not in the purpose and need nor the project description. To gain 90 spots in the enlarged Wildcat lot, shouldn't all roadside parking west of the Alta Lodge and along the bypass road be eliminated? In the 21-22 season, reserve parking was implemented. Was there overflow or cars turned away? How many days were there 90 cars parked along U210 and the bypass? Eliminating unsafe street parking is worthwhile. If the town supports this proposal, will the marshal's office see more interactions with people parking along the road, including ticketing and even towing? Will increased manpower be required to manage this? Do we have adequate as-built for our water and sewer lines? And if not, before this project is approved and gets underway, ought it be prudent to explore this to ensure we will not be damaging our infrastructure in an avoidable way? The Salt Lake Service Area number 3 declined to bid for our sewer system because of infiltration from unknown sources into the sewer system. Is there also above ground creek that flows under U210 towards the north bank of the Wildcat lot? If so, what effect, if any, is there to that creek and or the culvert from this proposed action? Secondly, exhibits 1 and 2 of the proposal depict a pond in the southwest corner of the existing lot. What is the effect should the pond be even closer from the proposed expansion? How will these water areas and water quality be addressed and protected? This year, the town is experiencing a UTA bus service reduction, in part due to challenges for buses to safely navigate the ingress and egress of the parking lot ramps. Would it not be prudent to engineer a ramp that is friendly to vehicles, pedestrians, and buses, whether or not the lot is expanded? I urge the council to explore an overall parking plan rather than a piecemeal approach. Work to ensure the town accomplishes public safety with both the authority and finances to cover any added costs. If necessary, work directly on a proposed action with entities who have jurisdiction, such as the Forest Service and UDOT. This coordination is vital at a time when UDOT, CWC, University, or Utah State University, U of U, and others are exploring recreation and transportation in the Wasatch and Little Cottonwood specifically. Is the proposed action prudent and timely when we lack conclusions on the authority of the resource and whether this level of vehicles and or increased vehicles are appropriate in Alta? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Citizen Burke, for your cogent commentary. Always appreciated.
Are there any other citizen input? I'd suggested Pam Beck contact Molly, and that didn't happen.
I've not heard from them, no. But if there's any other attendees here that would like to make a comment, please just raise your hand in Zoom and I will enable your video and microphone.
Okay,
I'm
well,
not
hearing
seeing
none.
any.
All right. Let's go on to Mike and an update.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. It still seems like it's morning, but it is afternoon. First off, I just want to express appreciation to Mike Morey and his team and working with us this morning and being able to, get the ski area open and straight line and getting people skiing. I think we made a lot of people happy and made some good memories today, and we had some great skiing. But it's always a challenging undertaking when you've got all those parts and pieces between the road and all of that. I know that we're getting a little beat up from people down in the valley, particularly employees and others, because they feel like they don't get enough information. So we'll continue to work on that. But thank you very much, Mike. Just a couple updates. So business-wise, we're about even with last year, even though we opened earlier, we were ahead, but the storms have taken a toll on us. We had one day closed. Today will be a significantly less volume day. We had another day, which is a half day. So we've kind of drawn even with where we were last year. From a snowfall standpoint, we're way ahead of last year. And if this was to continue at this pace, it could be a record in our books. We're closing in on getting closer to 400 inches. We only had 440 or something last year. I can't remember exactly what that was, but we're getting close. It is posing some challenges. We're hoping for a couple of good days here to kind of dig out a lot of things. We're buried in a lot of places. The snowfall's been a good thing, but it's also hampered, our lift construction project over there. We had hoped to be able to be doing a load test today and tomorrow on that lift and shooting to open it maybe on Saturday of this week. That's been pushed back. We're now looking at potentially a load test next Tuesday and Wednesday, but with another storm coming in Saturday through Monday, that might move that back a little bit. We're shooting for a week from Friday to potentially open the new lift if all goes well. But we are getting closer. You may have seen that all the chairs are now on the cable, and it's kind of a little bit of a beehive over there. Thank you again to your staff in helping us to get some of those people that are working on the lift over there during interlodge so they could work inside those terminals where everything was buttoned up. We are going to, based on the weather forecast, we're going to have our torchlight parade and fireworks this coming Saturday night. This weekend is our 85th anniversary of when Alta opened. And so we'll have a torchlight parade and a few fireworks to celebrate that. And since we didn't get a chance to use them at the New Year's, we'll use them for that this weekend. It's going on. That's there. In regards to our parking request, there was some public comment about that. In regards to the, we've talked to UDOT extensively and also to the town marshal here about, how do we stop if we're going to close that parking? How does that occur? It would be some signage, and the big part too is as we do snow removal, we would be able to stop, rather than plowing all that snow off so that you could make a place to park, keep a snow berm that would stop that parking from happening. We've looked at this project was looked at over 2 years ago, and all the issues about being close to the creek and the pond and the infrastructure were all addressed 2 years ago, and we'll continue to do those so there's no impact upon any of those water locations that are there. And we're hoping that we're just looking simply from a letter of support from the town that says, you guys are supportive of us in concept of replacing the roadside parking with parking in the Wildcat parking lot. And then we have to work out all the details with the Forest Service and go through that process, and their engineers, and potentially the UDOT engineers will need to be involved too with the entry into Wildcat that's there. Other than that, we're like you, we probably have a lot of tired people that need a little bit of sunshine, and we're hoping we get that in the next couple of days. And we're excited about the season and how it's going so far. On the Icon front, our Icon visits are a little bit off of last year, which we anticipated. And then when we look at our neighbors are up almost 30% in Icon visitation across the board in the Cottonwood Canyons. They're all up. So there's a lot of people still coming on that, but it's about where we want. And on our continual efforts to manage the number of people that come to Alta, we are in discussions with Snowbird and a little bit with the Forest Service about, trying to make the point that not managing roadside parking is contrary to the Forest Service management plan, which said they were not going to increase parking in the canyon at the ski areas. And the fact that you allow unmanaged roadside parking, in effect, is you are allowing expansion of parking in the canyon. And so we're trying to work through that and find some solutions with Snowbird to maybe a light down at the merge, or signage to not have people park on the north side and below Snowbird. We're trying to explore solutions cooperatively with the Forest Service, UDOT, and Snowbird to manage that better, because we have seen the impact of that, and also trying to keep the main line open when we can, which has been a little bit of a challenge this year, because that basically makes all Alta parking becomes Snowbird entry 5. We all have to go through their parking to get out of here. So those are some things that we're working on and trying to move forward as short-term things to try to focus on while UDOT decides what they're going to do as a long-term solution that's there. I did get news from Catherine Cantor that they were successful getting money from the county to implement a bus service on route where the old Route 953 was. Alta, Snowbird, Solitude, and Brighton have all put some money into the pot, and then the Salt Lake County came up with the rest. It's about $500,000 to run that service. So they're going out and they've got a bid, they're working out the details. And so we should hear some more news soon about some additional bus service, trying to get us back to the levels that we were. And then if any of you have looked at, UTA has put out their 5-year plan. And in their 5-year plan for bus service, the only thing they have related to ski service is to try to return ski service back to the level it was before this year, and no additional expansion beyond that. That's all I have, unless you have some questions for me.
Excuse me, Mike, talk about this 85th anniversary event, which is Saturday, the Torchlight Parade. How does one participate in that? I mean, other than just watching it.
Sure.
What's the deal?
So we'll do similar to what we've done before. We do expect to have light snow showers, but not enough to cancel the event. You know, we'll have some fireworks off of the mine dump, and then the Torchlight Parade will be limited to 500 people, and they have to get a ticket. There'll be a special ticket for that Torchlight Parade. You have to pick it. They won't be available until the day of. I think they're a $10 ticket to be in the Torchlight Parade. You need to bring your own light, and then we'll just have the route lined with torches, and then we'll have some fire pits at the bottom. It's kind of like we've done in the past. So we've had to limit it because, you know, in years, it's grown to the point where sometimes we've had over 1,000 people trying to participate, and we have people at the bottom when we're still trying to load people to get up there. And so it's like everything. It seems like these days there's more demand than there is capacity to accommodate. And so we're going to manage it in that direction.
When you say bring your own light,
Headlamp.
Okay, headlamp. So you're not going to hand out flares.
No flares. Yeah, we moved away from flares a number of years ago, just, you know, particularly as we started to have more families and children participate. You know, having a hot burning flare was not a good thing. And we replaced a fair number of coats and gloves from the sulfur falling off the flare onto them. And so we put the flares on the side. We will have our ski patrol and some ski school members skiing off of the top of Highboy with some flares, but as we have in the past. But that's kind of the gist of it.
And the route at least the ancient past took us down essentially where the summer road is in the big long zigzag. Is that going to be different now?
Yeah, and last time we did it, we came down corkscrew with the route, and that's what we'll plan to do. Is they'll start at Collins Angle. You know, they'll be loading. They'll get accumulate at the Angle station, and then they'll be led down from that point, kind of a zigzag down. But it will go through. We'll run some cats up right before we bring them down, and bring them down through corkscrew.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions of Mike?
Are we going to talk about the parking letter again later? Or
Yes.
If we have a comment, should we give it now?
No, we're going to talk about the parking letter later. It's
Okay.
on the agenda. Second page. Okay, anything else for Mike?
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the marshals. Let's see. Approval of the consent agenda, meeting minutes, treasurer's report, and staff reports. And we'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda. Well, tell you what, I will move that we approve the consent agenda. And Elise, I think, seconded. All right. Any discussion?
Was there actually a treasurer's report?
Those are the financial reports that are put in there, is how we've always referred to them. Which I can see why that would maybe be confusing, though.
Right, now that we have a treasurer,
Yes.
Maybe he'll from time to time give us a report. But the ones that you're providing, I think of as the clerk's report.
Okay,
Okay.
relabel that appropriately. Okay, any other comments, questions, discussion concerning the consent agenda? There's actually quite a lot in there.
Yeah.
Just maybe a reminder that when we motion to approve the consent agenda, it's really helpful for the minutes if we say including approval of the minutes from December 14th, 2022.
All right, I amend my whatever I said to include approval.
I noted your intent. I just, for the future. it's helpful.
Got it. All right, any opposed to the approving the consent agenda? Okay, in that case, it is approved. Okay, the marshal's report, and I asked Mike to expand on what he put in writing, because this has been really kind of a dramatic few weeks. So go ahead, Mike, have at it.
Thanks, Mayor. Broadcasting from the car here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I would just like to make a plea that nobody utter the words atmospheric river to me again. So the mayor asked me to comment about this last couple of weeks cycle of dinner lodge closures, and I guess I've written a little bit of an essay down here that I would call "Why I Hate Interlodge" by Mike Morey. Beginning December 28th and continuing to right now, we have had a long series of forecasted heavy and dense snowfall periods that have led to numerous road closures and the town being put into interlodge. I just wanted to go over some highlights of some of the things that we've encountered in the last 10 or so days. We've had several instances of interlodge closure violations, one involving a multifamily owned property in Albion Basin, another involving a guest at a bypass road condominium. That being said, compliance with the interlodge restrictions has generally been good, although we've seen the telltale footprints in the snow, particularly in the bypass condominium areas. They're telling us that compliance isn't what it should be. During the overnight closures, we've had a number of instances of calls to assist people that are having mental health crises or disorderly conduct calls. All were in lodges and all but one involved Canyon employees. Fortunately, each of these situations was stabilized by our deputies without having to make any arrests. We've had a number of ambulance evacuations of patients in serious condition during interlodge restrictions. We've had a number of highways that avalanches that have reached the highway during mitigation and through natural avalanche activity. Right now, I'm aware of at least 2 snow safety personnel that have been involved in avalanche incidents and taken a ride in the ski area. One of those actually resulted in minor injuries, and just hats off to the hard work that is done over in the ski area to make it safe as well. We sometimes get caught up in just thinking about the highway work, but the ski area work that goes on simultaneously is it's pretty miraculous. We've had one rental property that had to be evacuated due to high concentrations of carbon monoxide occurring during interlodge, and this really underscores the need to maintain your furnace exhaust vents. We had an instance where a man and woman from California were arrested for forcing open the avalanche gates in the lower canyon, driving to the upper gate, forcing it open, and continuing to one of the snowbird lodges. There's unfortunately just people out there that don't want these restrictions to apply to them. We've made one arrest locally for violation of interlodge, and that was to a male adult from Washington, D.C. During one of the mornings while mitigation was going on, we got word that an ambulance needed to leave the canyon with a serious cardiac patient. As we were bringing the ambulance down to hopefully move them between shots, we got a really large avalanche out of the Maybird area and debris across the road. So we ended up calling for resources from Snowbird. They brought patrollers and a sled down, and the patient had to be carried over the avalanche debris to a second ambulance on the other side. So fortunately, it had a good outcome. It, could have easily gone the other way. Some general comments. As I said, I don't like interlodge. I don't like restricting the freedom to travel about and assemble. That's a basic right in this country. And when it becomes necessary to restrict travel, the decision doesn't come lightly. And we do that with a lot of consultation with the snow safety people in the canyon, and I'm beyond grateful for them. Our town ordinance does authorize me to prohibit outdoor travel specifically for the reasons of activities undertaken for avalanche control and prevention. And a big part of avalanche control, which we don't really use that term anymore, we call it mitigation, is preparation. With the pandemic, we have less facilities available for people to just drive up in the morning and wait in a cafeteria until the road opens. And so that's evolved into longer overnight closures, and those are challenging for us. And it seems like every time we come up with a measure to give the explosives teams a chance to succeed, the public is trying to figure out a way around that measure. So if we close the road at 5, we get a line of cars at 3. And it's just ever evolving. Interlodge is a pretty unsafe undertaking for our staff. Our deputies, have to frequently go out under the slide paths, respond to violations, assist the UDOT and other people working in the canyon. And as I mentioned earlier, we're responding to more and more calls in the lodges with people just, I guess, running short on patience or, having emotional distress. And one of my concerns is, back in the old days, we could have a cop up here on duty during the closure and, everything worked out. And now that we're dealing with these more complex calls, sometimes domestic violence, sometimes assaults, disorderly conduct, our access to other police backups pretty limited. So for that reason, we've been doing a lot of extra staffing, and as Mike Mon mentioned, I think we're all a little bit tired. I want to say I'm not a snow safety expert. The town doesn't have a municipal avalanche forecasting team, but what we thankfully do have is the UDOT crew, and it's our good fortune that the things that they need to do to protect State Highway 210 also protect our village. So I lean on them heavily for their perception of the hazard over town. And because I'm not an expert and because I know they are, and I've watched them work and I trust them, I don't second guess them. And if they tell me something is so, then it's probably so. And sometimes we get it wrong and the weather doesn't pan out as advertised, and I'll continue to err on the side of caution, and I'd rather apologize for a missed flight than a missing loved one. Interlodge is tricky and there's a lot of moving parts. There's the need for ski area preparation, safety, and access related snow removal, and moving around of individuals to facilitate basic operations in town involves a lot of close coordination. It's done via a process of requests for clearance at Alta Central, which are evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Again, not everybody gets what they want. The number of people out is closely monitored as to their location, duration of the clearance, and return to the security of their building. It's always our goal to minimize these exposures. Interlodge is frustrating. It's many don't see the serious nature of it and feel there's no reason that, quote, their place away from the highway needs to be restricted, and some venturing out feeling justified that it just does no harm. What I want to say about that is Interlodge is about accountability. We need to know that everybody is indoors and clear, particularly when we're doing overhead artillery work. You may be far away from the slide path run out, but not so much the shrapnel that can occur from the artillery pieces. And so when there's a building that, maybe just isn't as exposed as others, and we're being hard about the restrictions, there's a methodology behind the scenes there. And, we would love to have the flexibility to give everybody what they want, but we have just got to know that the entire town is safe and clear for these activities to go on. Along those lines, being outside is contagious. Another reason we need to have strict accountability is people look out the window and they see somebody outside and, gee, I want to go outside too. And that's understandable. And we run into it frequently where somebody that's been given clearance to be outside is outperforming, a life safety task like shoveling a fire escape or making a condo entrance accessible. People see that going on and they tend to self-dispatch and go outside as well. And again, it starts that cycle of somebody sees it, gets reported to us. Shooting has to be put on hold, and we end up with substantial delays in reopening the canyon because we're chasing down Interlodge violators. So I guess this is all part of a plea to for the community to please help us when the restrictions are in place. I do want to say this to the council if I could. I think we've got some more work to do on interlodge planning. The bulk of our ordinance was last modified in 1980, and the things that we do nowadays are different from then. I think that the language of the ordinance is probably due for a review. I would like to work with the council about issues like hold harmless agreements for the people that we're clearing to be outside. I think the town's exposed to a lot of liability. Our current ordinance does require that at the ski area, and I can see no reason why we wouldn't require the same level of protection for the town with other people's that we're giving clearance to. And I'd love the opportunity if the council will allow to work with our legal team and maybe send you some draft language on updates that we think are appropriate. And finally, Interlodge doesn't work without community support. I really believe we have the support, and I'm grateful for the hard effort put forth by every resident and business in this town. I know this isn't easy, and I again want to say thank you for helping us make it work. There's no way we could do this without the support that we have from the town, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Well, I think the thanks goes mostly in your direction. I mean, this is extraordinary service done by many over the past few weeks to keep our town safe and keep it operational at the same time. And my hat really goes off to you. Somebody's named Margaret Burke put a piece on the website congratulating and acknowledging all this, which I thought was pretty well written. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I thought you did a good job of that. There was a lot of extra time put in on this effort by many people, and that's going to show up in our expenditures. And I just want to tell that our fiscal hawks to be aware of that. This is the kind of thing that municipal government has to spend money on. Any other responses or comments or from anybody?
Just a sincere and heartfelt thank you to everyone who keeps us safe, especially our Marshals Department. And I actually, and I mean this lightly, I think we should charge tickets for people who experience Interlodge. It's an incredible experience. And I think it's a great litmus test about people's personalities and how much they honor Mother Nature. It's a great example of how we are small as human beings and Mother Nature is in control.
That she is.
Well, thank you all for the kind words. And, if you have the opportunity when you see our trucks rolling around, to tell the guys you're glad that they're here, and our dispatchers as well up at Alta Central. I know that they wouldn't hate hearing that. I sit in the truck and tell other people to do hard work. So it's really our troops that are making this happen.
Yeah, my experience in stopping one of your trucks with the gold star on the door and saying and talking to them is every time I've gotten a very nice reception. And so talk to your local cop.
Thank you so much.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to we're going to skip over Friends of Alta because that was a no-show, and we will.
Cody sends his apologies, Mayor. There was a family emergency.
Okay. All right, got it.
He would like to be invited to next month's council meeting if that fits in here.
As well as let's tentatively put on a need to update the interlodge ordinance for next month too. That's something that Mike is requesting. I didn't realize it was so long out of date and that things have changed so much. So in the process here, we'll talk about next month's agenda too. Okay. John Goldner has unearthed something that most of us have forgotten about, which was a community center design that was produced 20 years ago almost. And he's going to say something about that.
Mayor, can I interrupt?
Sure.
Did you skip your mayor's report? Or was that intentional?
No, it wasn't intentional. It was a goof.
So I don't know if you want to go back to the agenda.
Number
or if you want-
Yeah. And I just got a notice that the road is now open. Okay. Welcome to our first meeting of 2023. First of all, we learned some distressing news last week that former Mayor Harris Sontek suffered a cervical spine injury while surfing in Mexico. And I don't have any other details, but he's reported to be recovering at the University of Utah Hospital. And I think it's unnecessary to make a formal resolution of this, but I would hope that we can have a sense of this body that wishes him well and speedy recovery.
Absolutely. And he is at home. And I can't remember, I don't get to talk like Harris. He said he is having less discomfort than he thought he would have. So that means I think he's doing good.
Good.
But it'll be fine in a little while, maybe a year, but he was lucky, but he's recovering and the surgery was successful.
Great. We don't wish these kinds of things on anybody. And good to hear that he's making such a recovery. I think Jen sent him some, get well soon greeting of some sort. I don't know if that was from you individually or from the town or from.
It was on behalf of the town.
It was on behalf of the town. Great. All right. Next is excuse me. We traditionally start off, or I do, with a COVID update. John sent me a little blurb, which he annotated to say that this area is done with COVID, but I might say that my response to that is COVID's not done with us, and we're getting new strains. And my sense is that all of us need to stay vigilant. Carolyn, do you want to say anything about that?
Not necessarily. I really hope it's over. Like I'm done. I think most of us are. But I hope that the world is better prepared for the next pandemic, but I hope this one's over.
Okay. Let's see. We did submit a request to house and exhibit at some point in the future a decommissioned avalanche howitzer. And on January 5th, we could go. Less than that, we received word that our request was approved, that there is a process for acquiring decommissioned weapons for display, and that governments, municipal governments in our case, are eligible to do that. So it commonly takes 3 years to receive a decommissioned weapon, but we're the first on our list, first on the list in our region. And we are more or less scheduled to retire the 2 howitzers at Pea Ridge in the next couple of years. And I hope that we can grab one of those and, weld the breech shut and put it out where people could see it. I'd also like to get some of the earlier weapons were used for this purpose as well. We don't really have a good place to display it yet, but we do have a place in the former fire station to house it until we do. And so I hope that works. It looks like we're on a track for that to happen. So I met last week with Becky Hotsey from the Forest Service, and she's supportive of getting a year-round restroom up here towards the end of our summer, not towards the end of the summer road, towards the end of the paved road for people, the increasing number, particularly of summer visitors, and to some extent, winter visitors to use that. And I think that's something we're going to, at least in my opinion, we're going to have to start working on soon. So this is important for protecting our surroundings. The Forest Service person who has been working on Becky's staff to kind of oversee activities in our canyon, his name is Ben Crya, is moving to Forest Service headquarters in Washington, which will be quite a loss for us because, for one thing, he's really familiar with our circumstances, and for another, that his job is being absorbed at least temporarily by Becky, which means that somebody who's already got more than enough to do is getting more than enough to do. With the curtailment of 70% of our ETA service and only one stop at gold miners this winter, we pulled together a local service without the shuttle to fill the gap, at least locally, and that gap runs from the Cliff Lodge to the Albion parking lot, and it seems to be working. And I think Chris put some of that in his report. You may have more to say about it. And we'll I am pleased that our community took some pretty swift action, because we didn't really have much advance notice on this curtailment of this bus service. And it doesn't make up for the whole thing, and particularly it doesn't make up for the one line downtown along Wasatch Boulevard that was curtailed entirely. But at least we have been able to do something locally, and I, for all those who participated in making that happen, I'm really pleased about that. That's related to parking and the clearance of our parking areas. We're having a contract plower clean out some of the spots on the north side of the road as that person is available and as those spots open up temporarily. And it gives us a chance to try to get parking, improved outdoor parking, before UDOT does its north side plowing. And I'm not sure when that north side plowing was going to come along. The UDOT drivers have been pretty darn busy as expected, and we're going to be asked to dig out our cars, those of us who are parked on the road, pretty soon. I suspect we'll get down there and dig notice pretty soon. Next couple of days looks like we're going to have some improved weather, which will be certainly welcome. In fact, I actually saw a shadow this morning, which was quite unusual. Utah League of Cities and Towns is hosting a local officials day with the legislature on January 18th. It's a nice event, good opportunity to connect with the legislatures. The First Lady Abby Cox will be the speaker at the lunch program, the Hyatt, and this is probably a good event to attend. If you're interested in doing so, call Jen or Molly, and they'll help you get registered. Another training opportunity is to take some courses on the incident command system training. I took the introductory course in the last few days, and it really helped me understand the structure and the lingo that goes with this stuff. Chris is very much up to speed on this, as he's I'm not quite sure what your title is in this case, incident reactor.
Emergency manager, we're talking about ICS training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even though people on the town, well, if there is a serious emergency around here, which sooner or later will happen, for instance, a big fire, this background that I got will really help understand what's going on. And even though those of us on the town council are unlikely to be in the command chain, except maybe for Elise and me, as in case the mayor pro tem is called upon for this. You may be looked at as some sort of authority or a knowledgeable person, so it would be good to be knowledgeable. So it's probably a good idea for officials and staff to complete a few baseline courses. The others development course. The next meeting is February 8th at 2:00, and that's the end of my mayor's report. Any questions or comments or rebuttals?
Mayor, your audio, for me at least at the very end, when was that baseline course offered?
Oh, the baseline course is online. Oh, so you can take it any time.
Okay.
And, so it's on your own. Okay, Chris, do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, you kind of just prompted me to add a little bit of information that you and I had discussed me mentioning during the course of the meeting. Just a couple of things. Mike Mon provided that update on the kind of stopgap big and low Cottonwood transportation service that Salt Lake County Council, approved a $250,000 contribution to in its council meeting last night. I think Mike, the ski areas have been heavily involved in getting that together. So I'm glad Mike was the first to report on that in this council meeting. There are a couple news stories out there that you can find with more details about it. In the Salt Lake Tribune, it was reported that there will be a $10 fare to ride the bus, and you will need to make a reservation. But I think, as Mike reported, the contract isn't finalized yet. It does look like it starts on the 26th and January 26th and runs until April 16th, and it will run Thursday through Sunday. And the routes haven't been finalized, according to the Salt Lake Tribune and Fox 13. So that's a little bit more on that topic. And then, I mentioned in my staff report this month for the consent agenda, the various around town shuttle services operated by Alta Shuttle. I asked Tom Schneider to come up with some numbers for you all, just so we could have a snapshot of ridership. Alta Shuttle has always kept track of ridership on the Alta Resort Shuttle and the night shuttle that was new last year. During the month of December, we have 3 shuttle services now. We have the new Alta Town shuttle service, sort of operating in the service gap left by the changes to UTA service in the Canyon. That operated between December 11th, and December 31st, and transported 2,748 passengers for a daily average of 131 people per day. The Alta Resort Shuttle, and that is the kind of standing, previous or historic existing day shuttle service, operated between December 16th and December 31st, and that transported 2,402 passengers for a daily average of 150 people per day. And then finally, the night shuttle operated from December 23rd to December 31st and transported 446 passengers for a daily average of 50 people per night. So that's a total of 5,596 passengers for a daily average of 331 people per day riding on one of those 3 shuttle services. So those are some pretty good numbers. I guess I would just add, finally, I did sort of mention this in my staff report, but it's something that Tom has brought up with me a couple of times, which is that we don't know whether any of these services can be funded again next year. They were kind of one-time funding commitments made to bring the existing Alta Resort Shuttle service, up to sort of a standard level of service this year. It remains to be seen whether there will be a need for the new Alta Town shuttle service next year, but of course that will take another $100,000. And then the night shuttle is funded largely by Visit Salt Lake, I believe out of CARES Act, federal CARES Act money. We don't know about the future of that money. So anyways, lots of ridership on our around town shuttle services and some question marks about the future of those.
But in my opinion, this is doing a real service to our community. It was costing us money, but we're also getting a lot out of it.
Could I ask a brief question?
Oh, sure, then go ahead.
Chris, do the numbers also track like where the pickups are? Like who's being served by this is kind of my first question. Like, are they tracking ridership in terms of who's getting picked up where, etc.? And then I'm really curious also, do all of these routes run all the way down to Snowbird, or is it just the Alta Resort Shuttle and the night shuttle? And then last of my 3 questions, when you described UTA kind of negotiating the busing cost, when you say 250 million is something that the Salt Lake City Council came up with, the resorts are coming up with the remaining 250 million that Mike referenced, if I'm running those numbers correctly?
The 3 orders of magnitude off. These are 250K, not 250 million.
Oh, did I say million? I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I'll try to work backwards. So yes, that's correct. So Salt Lake County made a $240,000 contribution to a $600,000 program. And UTA has merely made a contribution to a contract that Visit Salt Lake will hold with Snow Country Limousine. So it's not a UTA service. They're just contributing funds to this kind of special service that will be provided this winter. And so, yeah, 240 out of Salt Lake County, and then 4 Cotton Canyon ski areas and UTA filling in the rest of that gap. There may have been another partner that I forgot there. Oh, Visit Salt Lake will also contribute funds out of its own budget. Let's see. And then the shuttle services, the new Alta Town shuttle service, we're calling it, that picks up UTA passengers in the Wildcat parking lot. That does go to Snowbird. Snowbird is contributing to that service. The night shuttle goes to Snowbird, and Snowbird contributes to that service. The existing day shuttle, I believe, used to go to Snowbird, but does not go to Snowbird. And Snowbird does not contribute to that. They don't want. They haven't wanted that service to go to Snowbird. With what shook out with the sort of stopgap service we created at the last minute. I don't know if their attitude will change about that in the future. And then I guess your first question, working backwards, was about whether Alta shuttle tracks, where folks alight and disembark. Or get on, get off. I believe they do. Pretty rigorously, but Tom didn't provide me that information when he gave me this report last week or early this week. So,
would you like to see that in the future, Sheridan?
Yes, please. I don't want it to be this tremendous onerous request, but I think it would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
I expect we'll have another report by Tom Schneider for our February meeting, and maybe we can ask him to include that.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Great. And John Byrne wanted to say,
Yeah, I just thought I'd comment. I know the people that organized the shuttle, and I've spent a lot of time talking with them about the future. And I think one thing just to get on the radar, and I don't see this as being a 2023 project, but ultimately we should probably start a nonprofit and consolidate this transportation system, because the nonprofit would be eligible for federal grants for the equipment. And, that's what really sort of threw this into a little bit of a tizzy this fall, is the equipment was worn out. Who was going to buy the new equipment? Kind of the right answer is to have a nonprofit, and then the nonprofit can keep the equipment fresh on an ongoing basis.
I was just gonna say that I know, I drive through town pretty much every morning and every day at 5 when I take Ella over to the other side and pick her up. But majority of the people that I see riding that shuttle are our housekeeping staff for the lodges. They get off at the gold miners lot and they get picked up. And then same with the opposite direction at 5. They usually are somewhere in town. They get picked up and they get taken to the gold miners lot to go down. So I know that is a very tremendous help to them. And that's what I've noticed riding it the most anyways, in the mornings and evenings.
Yeah, good point. Okay, any other comments on this topic?
I have one more comment on this topic.
Yeah, sure.
And the mayor was gracious in giving kudos to everybody who worked so hard to put together a really nice program really fast to fill the hole that UTA left us at the very last minute. But what he left out was that it was your negotiations with the UTA that gave us a big kickstart in the funding to get us started on filling this gap. So we don't want to leave that out. That was great, because I don't know if we could have gotten started otherwise, because it was a nice big push. And I think UTA deservedly felt bad for not telling us earlier, and you monetized that. So thank you. That was good.
Yeah, I
And,
turned
and
shame.
it's working very well.
I turned shame into money.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, let's move on. John, you want to talk about this community center that you dredged up from 2003?
Sure, briefly. It's pretty boring, but it's interesting to note that there's a tie in everything we do. When Mike says when Mike Morey has said the way things have changed, there's really nowhere for anybody to go when they come up here early and the area is not quite open, or they're still finishing up plowing. And we had talked about our community center being a gathering place, both for emergencies and kind of like a holdover stop. So that's something that we can think about as we move forward as well. As you all know, we did just complete a big study on a community center for a 1.19 acre parcel just west of the fire station. We learned a lot from that study. It was good information. It really helped us. I think it helps us to move forward, even though there's not enough support for the building that came out of that study or the site that study concentrated on. And I think I heard someone from this body say, well, what if we did something in our current library fire station location? And as luck would have it, as Roger said, there's a 2003 study that is very in-depth. It's a very good study for a community center in the location of our existing fire station and library. It's on our website online. I put it in the staff report. It's very good. And I tried to find the team that did that study, and they don't exist anymore. However, I found one of the principals, and he was very excited to kind of revisit this issue. Let's see if I can pull this up, some of the things. He was excited to revisit this issue. Here's one of the stories. It's a 3-story building in the exact location of our existing fire station. This guy, Craig Elliott, he said, oh yeah, we'd love to look at that again. He did a current cost estimate for the exact building that they did a number of years ago, which is this building that you're seeing now. It's about 10,000 square feet. What we have in town property right now is about 3,000 square feet. And he came up with $3 million. And that's using the current cost estimates that they use in the construction trades. And he threw in a 30% increase because it was an Alta. Now, that's promising, although we know we're not going to build a 10,000 square foot building for $3 million, but it's not $20 million, and it's in a location that doesn't have the avalanche hazard that we saw next door. So what I'd like now is for your blessing to get this original principal to spend a little bit more money in moving forward, diving more into this so that we can get a better cost estimate. And when this firm did this in 2003, we didn't own any land. This was all under Forest Service special use permit. And it looks like this building would fit in the land that we have since obtained. In this particular site, we have a 65-foot deep by 110.2 foot long parcel that we got from the Forest Service. It looks like this whole building would fit on that, except for the architectural kind of arch that goes in the eastern end of the building. So I would love, because I can't screen save and tilt things. But I'd love to have Craig Elliott of the original firm delve into this a little bit more, and he could do a better cost estimate, see how this building actually fits on our land. And then most important, we had program elements that were delved into very deeply back in 2003, just like we did lately or recently on this new study. Compare the program elements. See what the community wanted and thought would be important for a community center in 2003 related to what everybody thinks is important to be in the study that we just finished. And for a few $1,000s, $2,000 or $3,000, we could get these answers to see whether or not we should move forward with this. Now, Chris, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you can chime in when I get things wrong, as I'm sure I will. But Chris is looking into right now, figuring out a way to stabilize the back wall behind the existing fire station. It's a rocky wall and rocks are falling out of that thing and slamming into the building. It's a pricey project. Anything we do with the existing building to try and remod it to use it for our future needs, we'd have to get in behind there and stabilize that slope first before we do anything else. If we build a new building, we'd be scraping this building and it would be built into the hill and it would all be part of the deal. But the kind of basically fencing and anchors that were done to protect the existing building were done in the mid-'80s as a stopgap measure by skiers who were working in the winter, and we figured it would work for 5 or maybe 10 years, and that was almost 40 years ago. So, Chris, I don't know if you want to say anything about the back wall. It's problematic.
I don't have any updates on that beyond what I've kind of, reported on at length over the past 5 or 6 months. But yeah, specifically about a, project to do erosion control on the back of the building. Yeah, so I'm not prepared with any news on that.
Oh, and yeah, Jill, I mean, we'd have to do that before we move forward with using our existing building. It's kind of probably a pricey project. But then we can at least compare, are we going to spend $500,000 to fix up the slope so that we can upgrade our existing building, or should we throw that money into a newer building in this site? So, we're looking at both things. And it's interesting that the original study, it's on the website. I don't know, it's like 30 pages. They talk about, do we fix up the existing building or do we tear it down and rebuild a new one? So that's something they addressed 20 years ago that we'll be looking at. But for now, I would love it if you would say, yes, let's do a little bit of a deeper dive on this without spending a whole lot of money and just see where we're at so we can move forward a little bit and have more information on a future community center.
And as I recall, we have money in our budget for a community center or a community center study. So this does not represent an increase in the budget. Is that correct, Jen?
I wasn't asked that in advance. I can look. We have money in the capital projects plan designated to this, but
it's not in the current budget, but we have the money.
So do you know exactly, John, do you have a proposal for?
Not yet. We'll get a real proposal. But I thought I wanted to ask first.
Yeah, if we have support in this, maybe we'll come back to the council with some figures that we can put in to the budget.
I support it.
Hot dog.
Me too.
I figure.
John?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess a couple of observations. One, I think if the new buildings are only $3 million, I don't know why you would spend a whole bunch of time thinking about trying to use parts of the existing building. I mean, that's such an affordable number, scraping the existing building. If the true cost really is $3 million, scraping the building is the right thing to do. The existing building, I think it's always good to know more. And I think that I agree with something John said earlier that, in the whole INEAD thing, even though that building didn't really work out design wise, or we just weren't comfortable with the design, we learned a lot about the site, and learning more about the site is invaluable. So, I'm hoping that that's going to be part of this few $1,000. I think the other consideration that we ought to try to get our arms around is, what's the parking paradigm in the future? Now that we have every space in town is reserved, basically, is it just the events have to be over before midnight so that people don't get towed at midnight? Or can the study include some analysis of what they expect the parking need and what parking values the site has?
Good point. Good point.
Very good point.
I went to go to the brief digression. I went to go to the Snow Pine yesterday for lunch because I was hungry. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out if it was okay to park my car there while I went in and had a burger. you know, and so it's a little bit confusing. Like if you go out in the evening for dinner or whatever, is it actually okay to park because it's not yet, you know what I mean? So it's complex.
Yeah. It definitely is complex. Carolyn, you want to say anything about this?
About the community center or
Yes.
about the parking?
No, the community center issue.
So,
The community center, not the parking.
Yeah.
okay. I am going to probably side with John Byrne when it comes to any concept of what's a good idea for design and utility and cost. And I'm curious about reusing this site. That sounds really interesting. $3 million sounds like an impossible task. Like, whoa, who's going to build it for that cheap? Unless they're donating it or something. But anyway, I haven't really thought too much about it. Sorry.
Okay. Well, my take is I subscribe to John's statement that more information is better, and that that I think we should use some of our capital project fund for labeled community center to take the next step on this in terms of getting a better handle on what there is here.
Would it make sense to authorize, say, $5 million? Or do you want to wait till next month and come back with the actual number, John? Not $5 million.
5 million, yeah, let's do that.
5,000 would be the most amazing study ever. No,
Yes.
$5,000 for the study, you know, I think up to that amount or something, or do you want to come back next month with a number?
I like that idea, if that's okay, and I'd go maybe 4,
Well, let's.
if that's,
Do we have a firm bid by this architect on what it would take and what we would get?
no, and here's an interesting thing. He did every space by every space. He did an estimate on every single space, and he did a number of hours, and he sent a bill for $1,000 to do the current cost estimate or the updated cost estimate, but he discounted it by 100%. So we have a current bill of 0, and he was just kind of waiting to see what came out of this meeting. You know, and like I said, we could look at a real cost estimate, how it fits on the land, compare the desired program elements from what we heard of last year to what we heard of and wanted 20 years ago, and look at some of the site info. And if we had a limit, I could throw this stuff out and say, yeah, give us as much of this stuff as you can under this limit. And I would
Right.
think this is sole source because he was the original architect. He's got the plans.
Yeah.
And he's got the 2 foot by 3 foot, 50-page, you know, the whole study and everything. So
And it's less than $5,000.
yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get to our procurement cutoff. You know, I do think, I just got to I feel the urge, I got to get this out on the record here. You know, we have such a dearth of buildable space for the town to meet the town's needs. You know, knowing how much we can build a building on this site for is really valuable information for us, even if it ends up not being the community center location. I think that ultimately having a building here at anything like this kind of price per foot is going to make sense for us. The reason I just feel like the carve out there, I wonder in the next year or two, what cards are going to, it would be good to let a few more cards turn over with respect to the gondola, enhanced bus. Is somebody going to build a transit center here in the canyon? I don't think we know the answer to those questions. It's probably going to be another couple of years, but there could be a great opportunity to co-locate our community center with a transit hub. So, you know, I don't think we want a headlong rush to put the shovel in the ground here, but knowing more about this site, I think could be useful in a number of different ways.
Absolutely agree, totally. And then even with the NAD study and the 20,000 square foot building, because I had always thought, well, if we get that parcel, this could be the community centered trail hub, transportation hub, all sorts of things. And when you talk to the UTA and the DOT, they're saying, oh no, if you built that 20,000 square foot building, that would barely meet the transit hub needs.
Wow.
So that's why we kind of discounted the transit hub idea for the previous building and previous study, because they said, nah, if you do that, we're going to need it all. And so that would get us nowhere. So things to think
But
about. I don't know
but-
what's going to happen.
But as we screwed around this summer with some drawings and designs, I think the ones that we liked were the ones that sort of went from this site down toward the photo house. Sort of, you know, that the idea that the development, the development site, you know, we should think about how that whole stretch should be developed rather than focusing on this little piece and then that little piece. And so
Bingo.
maybe somewhere in there, they could have their site and then we could have an adjunct building along the way there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna
Quick
spend.
question.
Yeah,
Pardon me, Mayor. And thank you, John, for unearthing these and for everyone, to everyone, for the robust discussion. Is it possible for them to continue to look at the original site that they placed this, as well as the site that the Forest Service that the town owns now? It's unclear to me if we're only looking at the new site, the new potential site, as opposed to the original site, the current siting of our community center.
Well, this gentleman, one of the original guy, he would only be looking at this site. And I kind of got the feeling from everybody that the site that the Forest Service, the 1.19 acre site just west of here, that is so heavily avalanched, that's going to increase the cost dramatically. And then a couple of, well, Art Mears, he's not bashful. He would say this right out loud in a meeting. He goes, oh, it would not be allowed in Switzerland or Europe to build a public building in an area so heavily avalanched, no matter how you build it. Said he,
So we're
he
talking
didn't
about-
think that was,
Oh, sorry.
he didn't think that was proper. So I'm kind of thinking, yeah, maybe we should stray away from that site, but we don't have to. We can.
No, but the level of, I mean, the thing that makes this interesting is it's a small piece of land that we own that actually could have attractive development costs, you know, low development costs. And when we mix it in with the bigger stretch, that the rest of it to develop it was going to have enormously high price per square foot, even if you could do it and feel good about it and sleep at night. So I think it makes sense to keep this little project focused on really this piece of the terrain, this piece of our land.
Agreed. Thank you.
okay. Let's move on to item
Thank
10
you
on
very
the-
much.
which is a discussion of possible action on a resolution authorizing extension and amendment of the interlocal service agreement between the town of Alta and Salt Lake County Service Area number 3. And I saw Keith briefly show his face here, and there he is again. Let's see, who's going to speak to this? Maybe Keith.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. As you are, I'm sure, aware, and I believe in your packet, you probably have a copy of the resolution that to do another 2-year contract for Salt Lake County Service Area 3 to here, let me turn my video on, to extend the contract for 2 more years for operating your water system in the town of Alta. We have been working with the town staff, and because of, you know, the increased complexities within the system and also with the Division of Drinking Water, we have opted to raise the cost of the contract from what was it, Jen, 2,300 to 3,000 a year. So it's going to
A month.
cost a month. So it's going to cost you $36,000 a year for us to continue to operate your water system. And I think that that's overall a pretty good deal. I'd like to I'll entertain questions about that, and I can also give you guys a little update on where we stand with the water. Has anybody, does anyone have any questions about the resolution?
Keith, maybe I can just add that reviewing this contract is something that's been done every 2 years by the town. So we're kind of just a tick beyond our schedule in this review of paying for these services. And then I would say that 36,000 is that's kind of the base cost. I would frame it that way.
And can I also say there hasn't been an increase for a very long time? Keith would know how many years, but.
Well, we have increased it over every few years. But it is, we're looking at what it costs the district to operate your system. And this is, does everyone have a copy of our resolution and the contract?
It was distributed, yes.
Okay. Overall, I think that it's a fair and equitable way for you guys to operate. One of the things I would like you to know is another person who is on this call is Casey Carpenter, who is our Assistant General Manager at the service area. As you all know, Steve retired and Casey has been working for us for a number of years, and he will be taking my job July 1st. So this may be the last time you guys see me at a council meeting. How's that?
Well, Casey, how about turning on your video so we'll see what you look like? All right, there he is.
Yeah, and Casey's got an amazing skill set. I'm sure you've seen him around town. And I'm actually right now in Lake Placid, New York for the World University Games. I'm a chief of competition. So I'm not even there all January, basically. But and Casey's done a great job so far. If you don't have any questions directly about the resolution, I would just encourage you to approve it, and we will continue as we have. I can give you a couple of highlights about the system and where we're going if we have that kind of time, Mayor.
I would prefer that we just respond to any questions. My own opinion is that this is a fair deal, and it's our relationship with the service area has been terrific for a long time, and the water keeps flowing. And so let's not fix something that's broken.
I think it's also probably important to note that in terms of this cost increase, it's not really being paid for by the town. It'll be paid for by the people who are part of the Enterprise Water Fund. And
Right.
that this extra money will go into our rate structure for next year's water rate.
Mhm. Good point.
And I just want to thank Keith for his service. I've always learned a great deal every time you've joined us, and you'll be very missed.
Yeah, indeed.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
So I move that we adopt resolution 2023-R1 authorizing the extension and amendment of the interlocal service agreement between the town and the Salt Lake Service Area number 3.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
that-
I believe I need to do a roll call vote because this is a resolution. Is that correct?
if those are the rules, do it.
Okay, Mayor Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Ansel,
Aye.
Councilmember Byrne,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Morgan,
Aye.
Mhm.
Does that count for two votes for Councilmember Morgan?
So cute.
I'm sorry, I interrupted it. I don't think John voted.
I voted.
Okay, all right. Unanimous?
yes.
Okay, well done. Let's move on. the Open Public Act, which should have started at half an hour ago, or no, less than that, 10 minutes ago. Polly, can you, and we've got more stuff on the agenda this afternoon. Is this something that we can take online ourselves, or talk to us a little bit about what the options are here?
So there is online training with the state auditor. I have a training, just a quick PowerPoint that's like 15 slides that goes pretty quickly. If you would prefer me to, I think it's helpful to just have it kind of live in case there are any questions. I can probably present it in about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Or we could do it at your next meeting if you're feeling rushed. Up to you. We can also do the state one, but it's very simplistic. And so I thought this was a good opportunity for people to ask questions and just touch base on this.
Well, I'm concerned that our discussion about responding to the ski area's request for letter of support is going to take probably more time than's allocated. And I'm just wondering if, what's the sense here? Shall we defer?
We can also move this
Go ahead,
if you prefer. Sorry to jump in. There's no reason why you couldn't do this at the end of the meeting if there's time. And then if there's not, we could continue it to the next meeting.
Okay, let's do that. Let's defer it till the end of the meeting and we'll and decide then we want to do it today or another time. All right, so let's move on to discussion and possible action to respond to Alta Ski Area's request for a letter of support from the town to the Forest Service regarding Ski Area's proposal to reassign the Wildcat parking shoulder to expand parking in the Wildcat parking lot. I think everybody knows what's being asked for. Basically a statement from us saying, yes, we like the idea of cutting off the parking, the roadside parking. And if there's expansion in the Wildcat lot that's of equal magnitude, that's what we're talking about here. On the other hand, I'm not sure that that's exactly, I'm not sure that the numbers actually work out that way, because Mike or Chris, do you want to say something about the roadside parking?
I think Mike should.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Chris.
You're welcome.
Well, so yeah, specifically, I think the area that we're talking about, we call it generically the Wildcat Shoulder. Yeah, which goes from the entrance to the Wildcat parking lot up to roughly the Deep Powder House on the south side of 210. That area, in my view, is problematic for public safety. It's very narrow. There's not much of a shoulder for the bulk of it. Some of it's so narrow that you cannot get a vehicle width parked without protruding into the travel lane of the highway. So one of the things that we have observed and worry about is that when people use that parking area and open their car door into a travel lane and then step out, the risk of an auto pedestrian accident is greater than other places in town. So from that perspective, I'm always in favor of the more we can get pedestrians away from moving cars, the better we're going to be. With regards to your question about space, I believe that the space that the Alta Ski Area is talking about is inclusive of roadside parking continuing down past the Peruvian Lodge into the top of the bypass intersection. And so I think that's where, maybe some of their numbers come from. It's really hard to get a good count on the capacity of that area. It's really situation dependent and it changes by the day, depending on whether the roadway snow packed or, we have a dry road. So. Does that answer the question, Mayor? I think we've estimated, I think 35 spaces in there, but then we've seen days where easily 50 cars are parked in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when it's real tight, yeah, there's a lot of cars that can fit into that space. And
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to include the front of the Peruvian and top of the bypass area. We've got UTA bus stops in that area. We've got a blind corner, and it's just it's not optimal for the auto pedestrian interface.
Okay, you've labeled the Wildcat shoulder from the entry to the Wildcat lot up to DPH. Do you have a name for what it is below that Wildcat entry down to the bypass road?
Wildcat shoulder west.
Okay.
No, there's really not a good yeah.
I
guess
it was mentioned that people mentioned parking on the bypass road. That really isn't happening anymore. Just as a point of fact, there's really been no parking to the left of the stop sign all season. Wouldn't you say, Marshall? I mean, you guys have seen it, and the way the snowplow is now, I don't know how you could park a car along the bypass road from the bridge down.
Well, I think that's true that is occurring. The potential still exists, but I think that the permit reservation system has gone a long ways to controlling the numbers of vehicles that we're actually getting in peak periods. So, but this Wildcat shoulder area, it's been a challenge for the town. It's outside of the ski area's special use permit, so the management's fallen to us. And when we get into the reservation periods, it's signed as reservation required or permit required. And it's a little difficult for the town to really understand who's using that area and what kind of accommodations that they've made. I will say that the backcountry users tend to favor that area. May not love the idea of having to park in the Wildcat lot instead. But my understanding is that the ski area's intention is that the additional space in the Wildcat area would still be held for public use to those people. Albeit a reservation may be required on certain days, and that's no different than the Wildcat shoulder present day.
Marshall, do we have the teeth to prevent people from parking there?
I think with the appropriate signage, there would definitely be an enforcement campaign, and we like to start with please and thank you, and then advance to warnings, and then go to a coupon and please see the court clerk. We've got experience with shutting down roadside parking. Albion Basin, I think, is a great example of that. There was initially a lot of resistance to that, and through some kind enforcement, we got there.
Thank you. So we don't need agreements with UDOT around that, or
I think
Forest Service?
Well, I think that UDOT, is a active partner in this conversation, and I think they've got an interest in the safety aspect of it as well. It's a difficult area to sign. I think it's technically possible. Maybe some expense needs to go into some really tall signposts that are, into the hillside so that the plowing can still occur.
Thank you.
It's the enhanced signage from the bridge down along the bypass road that I think has really helped reduce the amount of parking there and your staff interface.
Well, and we're using the old no roadside parking signs from the summer road. We just put a bunch of them on metal stakes and we're sticking them in the snow. And we've got a few that haven't been eaten by the blower. So far, so good.
Yeah.
That Wildcat Shoulder, I suspect, is used by early morning backcountry skiers now. Now, if ASL prohibits entry into the Wildcat lot before 8 a.m., are those people blocked out?
Well, so the current practice is for reservations to be available beginning at 6 a.m. for the south side of the Flagstaff lot. And UDOT's made that parking possible, by putting some extra manpower on it. And then the ski area, although not heavily advertised, has adjusted their operations to 7:30 cars are generally being accepted into the Wildcat lot.
Okay. So there still is early morning pre-7:30 parking available in the Flagstaff lot.
Yes, it's by reservation, and I don't think we've really seen days where the demand for that parking product has hit 100%. And so far, we're able to provide that space to those who want it.
Okay. Let's get a sense here. Where are each of you? And I'll go around John, you want to start on this?
Sure. I'm in support of giving them this letter, but I will tell you that because I think that's us being a good partner, and from the life safety point of view, there's no doubt that moving these spaces off the shoulder is a safer, is a good safety decision. My support of this, though, is entirely predicated on no new spaces net are going to be created. So in our support letter, I think language that, says our support is conditional on no new net spaces being created, and putting it in our support letter. And I just don't really live in fear that they're going to cheat on that. I mean, I just think that's not the ski area here in 2023. And I think that, we can trust them to not create any net new spaces. And I also think it's okay to put that in our support letter. So I feel like we're covering the conditional aspects. Some of the big list of concerns that we were talking about, those are conditions for a master plan review, and the ski area is in a master plan process. And at some point, I think all the issues that Margaret raised in her comment, those are all very legitimate comments when they actually put a master plan on the table, which is supposed to be in the next couple of years. I think those are all questions that should be answered. But for this, I think that list is disproportionate, and that we should go ahead, and I'm prepared to support the letter.
Okay. Let's see. I saw Carolyn put her hand up. Go ahead.
Can I ask Councilperson Byrne a question?
Suspect so.
Yeah. Sure.
Am I allowed to do that, or
Sure.
is there? Okay.
Of course.
All right. So, John, can you help me understand why that's important to you? Because as I'm kind of like thinking about this whole thing, trying to figure out, okay, what's the right thing here, right? So I think we've all seen an increase of backcountry skiers and other people utilizing things, and so are they really increasing parking space for our largest businesses' services, or are they just preserving things for themselves, or so I guess I'm wondering why that's so important to you.
Well, I think primarily they're repositioning some parking spaces from an area where there's inherent danger of somebody stepping into the traffic or stepping off the edge. I mean, back in the Shallow Shaft days, there were many a night walking home that I could have gone off the edge. You know, so it's, but I think the overall thing about the spaces is that's really the limit that's keeping the daily business from growing enormously. That's like the one sort of leash that's on the ski areas, the amount of people they can have on any given day. That's the only thing that we're holding on to until there's a new master plan. And in the new master plan process, I'd expect there to be more discussion of this. So when you say no new spaces are being created, I say, well, then it's kind of a no harm, no foul. I mean, where are we losing if they in fact don't create new spaces? It seems like this is only positive because we're addressing the life safety issue and we're doing it without adding to the daily volume of people up here. So I think that that's like the sweet spot for me.
Thanks.
Thanks for asking.
Mike, do you want to say something? You're muted.
Thanks, Mayor. I did fail to mention in my comments that we've had some internal discussion about the very eastern end of that, kind of closer up to the DPH and the Forest Service garage. We're taking a look at that. We believe that, there may be sufficient width for some parking to remain, maybe as many as 10 spaces at the far east end of that. That could be retained for public use. And we know from experience that people that use the community, OLS community center, need access to the town office, have used that space. So I think internally, we're working on maybe keeping that component of this conversation a part of this.
But it would still need to be part of the overall limit. So if we do that, unless Polly has a different opinion of that, but I think it would still need to be part of the limit. So if we keep those 10 spaces, the ski area would need to curtail its expansion by an equal amount.
Well, possibly. I mean, I think there really needs to be a good counting done of the capacity of that area. I also think that design-wise, putting the Wildcat parking lot project, to a final stage of completion, if they're not going to square it up, why do that construction in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I think the squaring it up makes tons of sense because you're adding spaces in an existing parking lot. So
and if I may, I'm sensitive to the numbers with parking, and I know there's a lot of people that feel, hey, look, if we build it, they will come. But I'm here to tell you that they were here yesterday, and I find myself supportive of any tool that helps us better contend with our present reality.
My sense is that if we start carving loopholes into the limit, that they're going to lose the support of the town. So, I just don't believe that's the direction the ski area will go, but I guess they should speak for themselves. But I don't see us approving it if we're going to, they can actually add an extra 10 or 20 over here. It really needs to be no net, zero, no new net spaces created.
Mayor, Mike Mon has raised his hand. Do you want to bring him into this
Sure.
conversation, or would you like to let the council?
I'd like to let Sheridan and Elise say something about this and add Mike Mon in the meantime.
Yes, we'll do that. Thanks.
My biggest thing is, we are getting choked out by Snowbird, like whether it's summertime road parking, whether it's wintertime road parking. And it's really hard to ask them to start looking at that and UDOT to start looking at that. Like somebody needs to start it. And we are lucky. We have some town parking along the road where the parking spots are safe. But this section that we're talking about is very similar to parking that's an issue down below us at Snowbird. And I don't think we can keep asking Snowbird and UDOT to look at that if we also aren't going to be taking that step. And someone has to start somewhere. And the other thing that I think we have to remember as a town is this is going to go through the Forest Service for approval. They, in their mass forest plan, don't allow parking expansion. So they will look closely at the numbers that are getting exchanged. I mean, this isn't something that we are not approving this project to happen. We are just lending our support as a town. The Forest Service will ultimately look at this, and it may or may not go through. But again, I do think we should support it. I know last meeting, I thought we all gave our support of this already. So hopefully we can get this letter in soon, because I know that this project is going to have to be reviewed soon. If it's going to happen this summer, it may not happen for a few summers, depending on how busy the Forest Service is. But my biggest thing is the safety of people. I've watched them. My office looks right up at that section of the road, and I watch people park up there when it's busy, and they ski down that very steep slope. And luckily no one's gotten hurt really bad, but I just think that we need to start somewhere on this roadside parking, and hopefully our neighbors down the road will also start working on that, as well as some better parking reservations to help with our traffic issue.
I mean, one of the things you're saying, Elise, is we're setting an example.
Yeah.
The Little Cottonwood Canyon. That's a good point. Sheridan, you want to say something?
Philosophically, I'm in support of the idea of taking equal number of spaces away from Utah Highway 210 and placing those within Wildcat, but truly a 1-for-1 expansion. I like Lisa's point about setting an example. I don't know how powerful that will be for Snowbird, but I think it's an interesting and potentially worthwhile reason for doing this. I think that's all that needs to be said. 1-for-1. I'd like to actually see the accounting of what that 1-for-1 is. I think that Margaret Burke's points are well stated, and I appreciate John Byrne's perspective on how perhaps those are questions better addressed to a master plan. But I think it's worthwhile considering them as part of this potential letter of support.
Okay. Mike, yes, you're back. Go ahead, Mike.
I am back.
Yes, you are back.
So just to clarify that, as Elise pointed out, the Forest Service current position and their Forest Service master plan does not allow for the expansion of parking. It all has to be a trade. And so, we have to prove to them it's exactly 1-to-1 or many to less. This area works out about 1-to-1. The other area we have lost parking, which we haven't talked about yet, is Celebrity Roll and Flagstaff on the south side. Since we've installed the traffic calming feature there, we have not parked those 25 cars on the south side of the road because it's now just made it a little bit narrow that we're not comfortable parking those. So in theory, you could take the position we've also lost 25 parking spaces there. And, it's the same issue. It's a safety issue to park that as that gets narrow. It's not a good place. There's not a barrier there like we have on the other side either to assist in that. So, it should end up that even if you leave 10 for the community center and you go from there down to the bypass, past those 25, that number will be greater than the 90 that we can put into the Wildcat lot with the expansion.
One thing that council, I'm sorry, Mayor, just one kind of factual thing that I think is just another element for the council to consider is my understanding is that it's like that the parking that is up on the road is outside of the special use permit. So the town should be considering a little bit, or just as part of your analysis of you'll be trading in effect parking that's on the road that would not come back for parking that's within the special use permit, Alta special use permit. I believe some of the parking that would be given up is within the town special use permit. I don't know the financial impact with reserved parking. Probably not a lot. Chris could probably speak to that, but you should just be aware of those facts as well as you evaluate this.
Okay, so you're saying that we would be giving up parking which is in the town special use permit and moving it to parking which is in ASL's special use permit. That's what you're saying?
That's what it looks like when I look at the visuals. Maybe Marshall Morey looks like he can speak to that.
And I'm gonna need Chris Colley to back me up here because he's got the better renderings on what's in the town's SUP and what's not. I think that the Wildcat Shoulder currently is in our SUP with the forest. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, that's true. We did,
Yeah.
When we got our special use permit last, in December of 2021, it included a portion of the highway shoulder.
Right. And, for the council's knowledge, the town does not receive revenue from parking reservations. Even though people that acquire reservations do use that area, there's just no tool in place for us to know that a person with a reservation used that part of the roadway as opposed to somewhere else in town. And that goes a little deeper, that this is all part of our reciprocal agreement with the ski area, to allow the use of their SUP for our permit parking plan.
Okay. So,
Just-
all right,
I'm sorry, Mayor.
go ahead.
Forgive me. Could you clarify that again? I thought we did receive revenue for anyone that parked within, for any of the spots that were within our SUP. Help me out, please.
We receive permit revenue. We receive a real small amount of enforcement revenue. We do not receive reservation revenue.
So that's not quite true. We are entitled to basically about 25% of the costs of early morning reservations. However, the cost to operate, the cost to operate the early morning parking program have not been covered by the revenue generated by that early morning parking program. So last season we didn't receive any revenue under that agreement. It's kind of a fractional amount of money. But I'm not looking at the accounting, so I can't quote it exactly, but that's why we didn't receive revenue last winter from that.
Okay, I'll follow up back channel, please. Don't, and hold me to that. I'd like to understand that much more clearly. Thank you.
Could I just comment on Polly's comment?
Yeah.
I think Polly raises a good point. It's an interesting point too. But it's also that the dangerous spaces happen to be in our little piece of the deal. And that's where the spaces are that we want to eliminate. So I think it's just, this is a goal. We want to do it. The biggest reason to do it, in my opinion, is because we're going to address the life safety issue. And so it is a canyon-wide limit, though, on the parking. So still, like in a macro sense, I don't think it matters, but it is an interesting point, just sort of generally.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to John's comment. This is something that I think Elise was speaking to a little bit. It is on the table in the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS under a number of sub-alternatives that are part of the proposed action to eliminate roadside parking in Little Cottonwood Canyon above entry 1 or in an even sort of greater portion of the canyon. And I believe that the diagrams that show where those restrictions would be implemented include this highway shoulder part of the canyon. So one way or another, and for a variety of reasons, there's a decent chance that this parking is going to go away someday.
So which is a good thing.
Yeah. Can I, let me try to sum this up. Would it be fair to say that the sense of the town council is that elimination of a considerable part of the roadside parking on the Wildcat Shoulder and maybe on the Wildcat Shoulder West in exchange for expanding the parking in the Wildcat parking lot of a equal amount is something that the town would favor?
I would.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
All right,
The majority, yeah.
we'll put the letter together that reflects that. All right, let's move on. I would like to move to a closed door session for discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual as authorized by Utah Code Section 52-4-205-1-A. And that closed door session would include the members of the town council, our attorneys, and one member of the staff. But we have to actually vote on that to it being legal.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So, Jen, do you want to call the roll?
I can if you'd like me to.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Mayor Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Ansel,
Aye.
Councilmember Byrne,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Morgan.
Aye.
All right.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, so let's talk about the procedure here. We're going to sign off on this. So we'll leave
That is
this
correct.
and we'll get another invitation for the closed session.
You should already all have that.
Okay, got
And
it.
do we want to officially postpone the Open Meeting Act training to the next council meeting, or?
Yes, I would like to do that. Okay, sorry about that, Polly, but we'll.
So will this Zoom call be fired up again to officially adjourn the regular town council meeting?
Well, that's a good question. Is that the proper procedure?
We don't need to, we can, I guess. We can hop back on this one to adjourn. No, I think we're okay. We
So
can, this
Adjourn the meeting?
portion is adjourned. We're in open. When we're done with closed, everything will be adjourned. So I think we're
Okay, well, one thing we've skipped over, or I've skipped over, is new business. Let's see if there's any new business that we want to take up before we adjourn this one and go to the closed session. Any new
I was
business?
just gonna say again, because I drive through town a lot these days. I was pretty unhappy with that dumpster in front of the Snow Pine, and I'm really glad that it finally got moved because I got stuck many times and cars were trying to squeeze through that narrow spot. So I don't know what we had to do to get that to happen, but I'm really glad they put it back where it was supposed to go. And that's all. I was gonna bring it up, but I guess they fixed it. So thank you to whoever helped with that.
I don't think it's permanently off the highway. I think it just pops out there once a week or something like that. John, do you have anything about that?
Nothing officially, but it's not supposed to be out there. It does pop out there, a couple times a week. I mean, if they do that just to move it so that it can get dumped, that's one thing, but it sits there for a couple of days at a time sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's been out for multiple weeks. I've been driving around it. So, and I've also very frustrating when the DPH parks their van on the side of the road instead of going into the cover of the snow pine. It's really hard for the UDOT plows to get through with traffic and people digging out their cars. I just watched a couple dangerous things sort of happen in that area. So right now it's gone. So I guess we'll just see if it comes back.
We had a more gruff UDOT individual help me yesterday with getting that conversation understood by the lodge. We'll see if it sticks.
Oh, and Michael, I'd be happy to help with that too. It's like,
That'd be great, John. They've got to stop doing that, or I think there's other options that they could be using.
definitely. Okay, we'll talk
Any
about
other
that.
business?
So John Byrne, you've spoken about the possibility of a retreat. Did you want to air that idea now, possibly?
I was actually thinking I would just write Polly a note afterwards to say, as when you were doing your training today, I had mentioned to Sheridan, it would be good if you could delve into the rules surrounding a retreat. As I watch this League of City and Town video, they talk about having retreats. And I think I'm thinking like a 3-hour retreat, maybe with lunch, some afternoon where we could talk informally about a broader set of issues, help build consensus around an agenda, but do so without the specter of YouTube.
Do you want me to answer that now? I can.
Sure.
So absolutely, retreats, a lot of councils do retreats and visioning, and I think it's a very good idea to help figure out where you want to go, and it's good for staff, it's good for the town. You can do it, it's a work session. It doesn't have to be in town offices. It can be, at a other location, but it does have to be, if there's a quorum of you, it does have to follow the rules of the Open Public Meetings Act. So it can be more informal in that you're around a table, someplace where you can have snacks and all that, but it still has to be recorded. You still need an agenda, and the public has to be invited. You don't have, you put it on YouTube as as a way for the public to attend the meetings. If it's 100% virtual, so long as you have the ability for the public to come, you don't necessarily have to put it on YouTube, but you do have to record it under the state law. So there are some parameters, and if you want to talk that through offline, I'm happy to, but the general rule is Open Public Meetings Act still applies, but it's a great idea, and I strongly recommend that you do it.
By recording
One of the big differences would be that we could allow the staff to speak more. One of the things that doesn't happen at these meetings to any great extent is I'd like to hear more about what the staff thinks. And I think that kind of an informal atmosphere that was more of a roundtable discussion with the council and the staff, I think that would be really the value of doing it. And if it means that it has to be on video, that's just the way it is, I guess. But I think it would be really worthwhile doing. It would help us be more cohesive.
Yeah, the work session is a good idea. Sorry, Roger, but you can always, what some of my cohorts downtown, they say every meeting is stump the staff. So you can just shoot stuff out of left field at us as it rolls from the agenda, but you got to kind of follow the agenda, except when you get to new business, and then it's stump the staff. But a retreat, that's like the whole 3-hour thing of that, and it would be good.
Okay, and if we held it in person, it wouldn't have to be here in Alta. It could be at Lakai or Mar-a-Lago or any place that would be equally convenient.
Probably has to be in state. I haven't seen the rules on that, but you could have a special meeting anywhere. And you just have to make sure that there's a place for the public to watch and listen. And it just does have to be recorded, but it doesn't have to be videoed.
We don't have to give the public an opportunity to speak. This would just be us speaking.
No.
Okay.
It's kind of, I give the example, and I say this in my presentation, it's like going to see the legislature, the state legislature. You can watch them, it's public, but you don't necessarily get to speak. generally you don't get to speak. So it's the same.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Appreciate that.
All right, has to be in state. Got it. Full limit. All right.
Mayor,
Okay.
can I throw one quick thing out before we
Sure.
wrap?
Yeah.
You asked about north side plowing, so if everybody would please watch their Alta Central alerts closely the next 24 hours, we'll be having something to say.
Good. Good. All right. I would like to let's see, we've already voted to adjourn this meeting, correct? Oh, we have not? Oh, all right. I move we adjourn this meeting. And for those of us who are joining the closed door session, we'll assemble that in about 3 minutes. Okay, so
Second.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Okay. See you soon. Bye.